If you are an artist, a writer, a poet who has been turning to arts organizations, nonprofits, and philanthropic networks for grant funding and just funding in general, you've probably seen that, honestly, probably across the country, there's been a lot of uncertainty and nervousness regarding funding in Ohio and Columbus. One of the larger arts organizations that funds projects, known as the GCAC, recently announced that they will not be continuing with one of their grant programs, and we want to talk about the implications of that for artists and poets. And I don't necessarily think it's all bad news, personally. Yeah. But it depends on your perspective on it. Good morning, guys. Good evening. Good afternoon. Welcome to Arts and Offers. This is your video podcast where we talk about art, writing, poetry, in connection with business. My name is Geoff.
I'm Matthias.
I saw, and you probably saw it on your social media feeds as well, like many people posting when the GCAC announced that, we're no longer doing this funding for these sorts of projects. A lot of people were like, oh man, I was about to submit. Oh man, I can't do this anymore. Like I saw that multiple times. And I'm guessing you probably saw similar things too. So when does that happen, when kids being able to think like, oh yeah, I can just make this and do this, versus adults being like, now I can no longer function?
Yeah. You know what I think? Well, one of the things that I think happens is as adults, we are very constantly thinking about, I would say, the most polished version of our idea and trying to create that. Right? So, actually, I was talking to another creator in Columbus, Scott Woods, a couple days ago at their open tables. It was doing Saturday at Streetlight, and it was interesting because I'm like, he was saying that what I do is I think about like this largest version of what I want to do, and I just scale it down to whatever assets that I have right now. And I think as adult creatives, we have a really hard time doing that. We have a really hard time envisioning the thing that we really want to see out in the world as, the simplest version of itself. And because of that, now it's like the only way for me to do the thing that I want to do is with $10,000, is with $25,000. And it was interesting because I think that when I too had a grant proposal like ready to go, and I was getting everything kind of sorted out with like what I was going to pitch and how I was going to pitch, and then after the news came out, I think the version of me last year and definitely the year before that would have been like devastated, would have been frustrated, right? But I think like this version of me was just thinking like, all right, so like. Now maybe it's not a $25,000 project. Now it's like a $5,000 project. But like I can do, and we've done amazing things with no money at all, right? So like something going from $25,000 to $5,000 feels like, in any kind of production, it's gonna feel devastating, but. Going from $0 to $5,000, that's really crazy impressive. And so, I just think that a lot of like as adults, we have a much harder time scaling things back and making things reachable for where we're at now and then growing them. We really want, I need this to happen right now in the way that we want it to happen right now. Mm-hmm. And that just might be because you have a much more defined version of like the progression of time. You know what I mean? Like, kids, you think you're going to be a kid forever. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, oh, I'm just creating, I'm just doing things. So, like, I don't have to have this wildly impressive version. We even saw it, with like the kids that were creating, like they're thinking of these like kind of really cool makeshift ways to kind of communicate their images or communicate their sounds. They're walking through, walking through Bronzeville, and they're like just recording little sounds here and there. And then as they're recording sounds, they're like making beats and stuff like that. But they're like these $25 recorders, and they're putting it into like this free software, and they're just they're so happy with it. They're super excited about it, and they're excited in ways that, you know, you might take an old, like somebody else, and like, I would never even show anybody this. Like, I need to wait until I am the best ever at making beats before I can show anybody, before I can do anything. I'm just like, yeah, these kids are much freer with that concept.
Yeah. I think it's also just, I think there's a fear of risk. Like, there's a fear that, like, if I do it on my own and it doesn't work out, I'm out. All of it. Whereas, like, if I get grant funding for it and it doesn't work, wasn't my money. you know what I mean? Like, it changes the stakes a little bit. But conversely, I think it's also an undervaluing of the things that we're actually capable of. Like, for instance, let's say I wanted to create this project that was maybe just like $500. And originally I was going to do it through a grant. I don't get the grant anymore. What am I going to do? Well, instead of like getting sad about that, I mean, the thing I'd be thinking about is, what can I create artistically right now that would help me achieve that same outcome? Yeah. Like, to give an example, I have to travel this weekend. So I have to go to New York. I have to go to Philly and New York. And I was like, all right, how am I have the money to like cover the trip. But I'm like, if I wanted to create something that when it's done, that would pay for the trip, what would it look like? So before trip, I didn't have it. I didn't have this thing created. Then I learned I need to take the trip. And then I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to create to pay for the trip?
Yeah.
You know, so then what I did was basically over a course of a couple days, I created a little workshop for my teaching students, my pronunciation students. And then I did the workshop. And then, all right, now I got the money for the trip. You know? Mm-hmm. And the other benefit of it is that now I've created the thing, you know, because it was a workshop. I recorded it. So now other students are able to purchase it. It's like I put it onto my teaching channel, YouTube channel. And so channel members can watch it. And a couple people signed up to become channel members. So now, you know, it's like, and it's always going to be there. I made it once and it's still living on. So it's before, if I didn't have the trip, if I didn't have the need, I wouldn't have made the workshop. But now I have the workshop, and now the workshop is still working for me, even though I only did it once for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, and I think something like that is like a really cool concept because I don't know. I think about like let's say you see something with a like you see like a new camera and you're like, man, I really think that, or actually I take that back. Let's say you see a video and the video is using a camera that you're like, man, I really want to push my work to that camera quality, but like you don't have the resources maybe at the time to kind of push your work that way. A lot of people would let that paralyze them into not doing any camera work because I'm like, I don't want to release anything until I have that thing. But then it's cyclical because now it's like, I don't have that thing, so I can't release anything. But I'm like working in its stead to push whatever you have right now into, being able to either create like something that is like a resource for you in the future, being able to create like a video that you feel like, is going to open some people's eyes and they might want to book you to do videos, and then now you have that. Like, these are all things that you can kind of like resource and kind of do yourself. I think conceptually, one of the things I think about is like the fact that you're like, the money doesn't come from nowhere, right? So it's like you actively did something that created this resource, and it's kind of like just like being a protagonist in your story, right? A protagonist is like a good protagonist is somebody who is like, they are the one who's pushing the plot, right? They are the ones who like, okay, I need something to happen over here. I am the reason that it happens. I am the reason that it comes into existence. And a lot of times, we are waiting for these outside sources to confirm something and to push whatever we have going on. And I think that is something, it takes the protagonist energy away from you. You're supposed, and I'm not saying good things can't happen. I'm not saying that like grants are like evil. I'm saying that like they are a thing that like takes you out of the equation. Now, now, regardless of once you send that application in, it's like now you're just hoping that a whole bunch of other people in a room somewhere else that you're not connected to, that they believe in your vision enough. And I'm like, no, like, the way that I would think it should be is that, hey, you can submit things for these applications, but like they should be things that are happening regardless. But it's just now it's a matter of like, what kind of quality can we pull from this?
I like the image of like the good protagonist, because what ends up happening when you go through these organizations for funding is you're no longer the protagonist. The organization is the protagonist. And you're moving in their direction, because they're not going to fund you if they don't approve what you request.
Yeah.
So it has to be in alignment with them, I think that grant funding is powerful and helpful, but it's almost kind of like parenting. And it's okay, for a 5-year-old to live with your parents. It's okay for, a 15-year-old to live with your parents. Once you start getting 25 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, and you say that you still live with your parents, people start being like, well,
what's going on?
Especially in some of this is cultural too, but people are like, you still live with your mom? 30-year-old adult?
Yeah.
So I think that the question is, if you're an artist, when is the plan to move out? Is there a plan to move out? Or are you planning on just living with your parents artistically for the rest of your life? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think okay. I think that a grant, an arts organization providing grants is the arts organization. So like let's take something like our local arts organizations. It's like them saying, this is the kind of work in art that we want in our community. And that's good. You know what I mean? If I'm a father and I have 5 kids and I'm like, I want my kids to develop and create things that they want to create and do things they want to create. So if I see my kid and he's like, man, I like dinosaurs, I might buy him dinosaur books. I might get him into like a summer program that's like a paleontology thing. You know what I mean? Like you might you would cultivate those things in your kids so that they just stay on that track, or at the very least they develop things within that space or that field and to their interests. And I think that by the time those kids are like, just like you said, like they're 18, 19 years old, like they should be leaning into those interests themselves. Like, no, like, okay, I don't need somebody else to buy me this book. Like oh man, how can I learn more about this concept or this or whatever this is? You might go to college or anything like that. And it's similar because again, as an artist, it's like I am interested in art being good in Columbus and art being good in Ohio, and me contributing what I can contribute to Columbus and Ohio. But as an individual artist, my allegiance isn't just to creating within this space. I might also want to create things that are, that go out into like the world, other places, or I might want to go to another country or anything of that nature. And because my interests go beyond just what the metaphorical parents, interests are in this space, it's like they're not responsible for pushing my message out to those people or for supporting my trips over there, or even if I relocated or anything like that. So yeah, I think there's something to being like, okay, like I understand, like this is where I'm growing and I'm cultivating, but the goal should be to look at, those organizations like, now that I'm out of the house, you should be supporting the kids that are still in the house. You know what I mean? And now, out of the house doesn't necessarily mean that you're like out of Columbus or anything like that. But it's just to say that like, hey, like now that I have developed and I am doing things on my own, like I'm 34 years old. If my mom was like, hey, Matt, here's a meal. It's like, I'm going to eat it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I feed myself. You know what I mean? I go out there and feed myself. And again, I think a lot of people are like, they're still like, man, like, and it's almost dinner time. I need to run over to my mom's house or I'm going to starve. But I'm like, she's been feeding you this whole time. The thing that you're supposed to be learning how to do is cook.
But the problem is your mom never taught you how to cook. I mean, this is the thing that... but that's literally happening.
The problem is your mom didn't teach you how to cook.
Well, it's like...
you gotta cook.
Like, the relationship with, like, arts, it just feels very dysfunctional to me. Yeah. Because it's possible to win these, like, prestigious awards, these large awards, multiple times. Right? It's possible if you're an established artist that it increases your chance and likelihood of getting grants again in the future. Because you know how to play the system. Right? Yeah. It almost rewards you for your dependence. It's not... You're never learning what it takes to do it on your own. It's like your mom won't let you move out.
Well, that's kind of like, I think that's when you get into something that I'm like, what are the motivations with all the people involved, right? So you can have, for them, their motivation is you're a great artist, you're a great practitioner of your craft, you execute. Just doing full reverse stuff. Yeah, you're great at execution, and they know that if they give you the funds, that you're going to execute. And I'm like, that grant program might look at you like you're a good asset to invest in because you're sure. You know what I mean? They're sure that you're going to produce something that they're going to be able to put on their website and say, look what we do, look what we do. This is so great. But again, just like we were talking about before, they can put themselves out there as the protagonist. It's like, yeah, they're an artist that is working in their field, but they only did it because of money that I gave them, that I provided them. But I'm like
they're not. They want you to succeed if you're in alignment with their mission. Yeah. If they have to choose between you or themselves, they're going to pick themselves
every time.
Okay. And that's just a relationship. That's if you have a boss, your boss is the same way. If you work for a large company, your company is the same way. Like, as long as you're in these sorts of dynamics, that's how they're always going to be. They're like living things. It's self-preservation, and I'm not mad about that because I would do the same thing. Like, I get it.
Yeah, you kind of. I mean, it is like a job in a way too, because it's like, in order to keep your job, you want to be an asset to the company, right? So, like, you want to make keeping you the selfish decision that the company's making. They're not keeping you because you're just a kind guy and we just rock. Like, no, they're keeping you because selfishly they want to grow. They want to keep going, and like, you're a part of that growth. And so, and again, that's for them. But also, a part of them keeping you is they're keeping you from something. Mm-hmm. They're like, we want to hold on to you, so we're willing to pay you this, and this. But I'm like, let's say like a real estate agency, if a real estate agency was like, you're our best seller, we want to keep you here, we're going to keep paying you more and more and doing all this other stuff. But are they paying you more than you would make maybe if you were independent?
And they're always, if someone accepts a contract, if someone accepts anything with payment or transaction, like any sort of transaction like that, and these grants are transactional, because you're literally signing over things, they're only doing it if they feel like they get a little bit more than what you get.
100%.
Even if it's $51.49, that's some reason they keep you. Your company only pays you what they know is they feel like they're going to get more back than what they pay you. Yeah. And the minute they have any doubt about that, they find a way to get rid of you. Yeah.
Even when you think about, let's think about like our story earlier. Like, we have, like, Geoff has books, right? And depending on how much you would sell the books for, like, let's say, like, I don't know, let's say the book's $15, right? Like, him giving you the book selfishly is not just I'm just such a great guy. It's like, the thing that I'm getting out of this, giving you this book, is worth more to me than having the book. Or maybe even having you pay for the book. Yeah. It's like, it's this transaction that's happening is worth more. So again, it happens all over the board, but it's just like, now you have to decide what part of that fulcrum that you want to be on. And a lot of times it's like we're sacrificing both freedom and acceleration on our own, like on our own merits, behind our own work. We're sacrificing that so that, I'm sure there's a lot of adrenaline in getting, when I do the artist grant thing, I did the artist grant thing every year, like the thing that I was thinking in my head was like, okay, if I do this every single year, then every year I'm going to have whatever, this extra bunch right here.
Add another
yeah. And it was just like, again, which is ironic because like the kind of progression that the largest quality increase in filmmaking that I ever made was not even made by any grant whatsoever. So it was like it was by work, right? So I think it's just like, it's just a good lesson because I'm like, I think that, again, myself included, again, this will be the first time in like 4 years that I didn't apply for the project grant because it's not here. But it's also like, oh, I'm realizing that I'm not looking at it like, oh man, my project is doomed. I'm looking at it like, okay, what community, but also more importantly, what can I facilitate within myself? Because it's like, I don't want to ever be in the position where an arts organization is the deciding factor about whether or not my projects can thrive.
Yeah. And it's going to allow you to become more than if you stayed with it. So I think, I understand the negative feelings towards it. You never want to hear about funding an artist getting cut because it's kind of low-hanging fruit in terms of what gets cut first very often. At the same time, I'm excited for what this could motivate artists and poets to move towards, because I think it could be the key to unlocks a path towards real artistic and creative independence. One kind of final thing I've been thinking about recently, I don't know if you saw, it's like in DC, the Smithsonian there was like a festival that the Smithsonian, I don't know if they ran it, they were associated with it, and so they brought in artists to display things on the mall, and one of them, at the risk of getting the video like shadow banned or anything like that, someone put a political statement on as part of their art. Right. And the Smithsonian was like, yo, this feels inappropriate to me. And the artist disagreed. And then the next day when the artist went to see their work, they found that it had been covered by the Smithsonian. So people couldn't see it by like tar. And so here you have an artist that was brought in by an organization associated with the Smithsonian. And then the Smithsonian saying, hey, we're going to cover your art. So as long as we stay dependent on organizations, even large, prestigious organizations, we're also giving them the control over who accesses our own work.
Yeah, I didn't see the story that you're talking about, so it's like really hard for me to like wrap my. But I also think about like when we're talking about like commission. So like let's say like commission work for. Not even necessarily, because commission work is like maybe different, and it's like the vector that it's kind of fitting in. But just when we're thinking about like kind of our art and stuff like that being online, it's just like a lot of the time, like these social media platforms, you can have depending on what is socially acceptable, at the time, and maybe who's behind kind of the levers of control, like they're the ones who are deciding like, okay, what gets through, what penetrates, or what can even be allowed up. So, like kind of having your own way of not only being able to get your work out, but then also just actively trying to get your work out yourself, as opposed to, having to rely on these things is, one of the more important ventures that you can really kind of push your art through.
And I think the more that we understand that the issue with the art actually isn't funding, it's lack of exposure. That's the greatest, I think, obstacle to us as artists who seek to impact change on a larger scale beyond ourselves. It's not that we don't have the money, it's that we're just not known. We're too obscure. Obscurity is the thing that's stopping you from really reaching your artistic goals. And I think that the more that you can work to break free from that, the more opportunities are actually going to arise from that. So we're really trying to get our work out there.
Yeah, 100%.
Any other final thoughts just on the funding grant situation?
No, I'm just, good luck to everybody. I think that, because it's also like, okay, like regardless of what I think this whole thing should teach everybody a lesson, but I don't think the lesson is like, oh, why were you relying on me this whole time? It's just like, okay, like now,
it's an opportunity.
You know what I also think? I'm going to say this. I actually think it was because the funding portal would have opened up yesterday, right? Because it was supposed to open up the 28th of July. And I think something that is really good about the fact that this announcement was made kind of so close to them kind of opening up that portal is that, and it's kind of two-headed dragon there, right? But it's like, it sucks because it was like, man, I was so close to being able to get this thing, submit this thing. I worked so hard on this thing, and now it's like, okay, it's not gonna. I don't have even the potential to get that $25,000, whatever that money is that you're going for, kind of boost to your project to just jumpstart it right now. But then also, what the way that I hope everybody looks at it is definitely the way that I'm looking at it, is that like now I have a proposal that maybe without the thought of, okay, I have like this money coming up, that I wouldn't have tried to get together so quickly. You know what I mean? I might have dragged my feet for, months and then kind of mauled my head or like mauled over and been like, yeah, do this. Like now I really polished up a really clear proposal, and like now that's a proposal. Now I'm pitching me. Now, the past version of myself that was super excited about this thing, that version of myself is pitching my current day work ethic, my current day to day, like how do you get this thing off the ground? Because like it's a project that I want to do, it's a project that I believe in. Now it's like, okay, so how are you gonna put this thing together now? Like how do I scale it down from this $25,000 project? And again, because it's a different project than it was. Now, as far as scale, now I can be kind of creative. Like, okay, like how do I get these things done?
I think one final note I'll say too is that one of the things that made me think more about this relationship between arts organizations and the artists they serve is that I think is really interesting is when a lot of times these cut announcements are made, there's no reference to other ways to get the work done. In the sense that they'll say, hey, sorry, funding closed, period. There's nothing saying, but if you're still trying to get your project off the ground, we're holding a town hall to talk about community resources, or meet one-on-one with us to talk through your plan, or here's some other organizations in the city that might be able to help you out. There's none of that.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of, it makes me kind of question more, again, who are these organizations really serving? Or what are they actually interested in? Because if they were genuine, like 100% interested in actually helping the people who would be impacted, where's the help? Like, I have like teaching services, and if I was like, hey guys, you know what, I have to shelter, I have to close down a service. Here are other teachers I know that have similar things to what I'm doing. It's not the same as me, but at least like if you're trying to have a class every day or something like that, you can go here. Or like here are some online resources to check out in my absence. Here are some other alternatives you can do when I'm gone.
I think I get that. I mean, one of the things that I think about is like a lot of these people aren't, I would say like, because they're not necessarily, a lot of them aren't necessarily artists. They're like appreciatives. They appreciate art. They like observe art. Maybe a lot of them, it's a little bit hard for them to kind of wrap their heads around other things to do to get art done outside of just writing checks. You know what I mean? And so, which also, again, that's an indicator of like, okay, like who the people that you're going to, that you're trying to communicate your needs to, are not people that are coming from your same frame of reference. And so a lot of times if they're continuing, they're funding things that they don't even necessarily understand a lot of times, like the purpose or what it could implicate or things that could happen from your project. So yeah, I mean, both sides of the coin, there are reasons for you to be like, well, hold on, like, what can I do myself?
I hear that excuse. I don't like that excuse. I hear it.
I'm not saying it's applicable to everything,
right.
I think there is a subset of people that are like, I appreciate art, I love art, and I love to see other people doing art. And while now I don't have the ability to write this check in order to get your project off the ground, it's like I also might not be the best person to try to redirect you to, okay, but this is how you can do it without the thing. Like, maybe the only thing that they've ever done is whenever something came along, they're like, okay, let me write a check, so that the people that, like, maybe they're leaning on the people that are giving money to, like, you're the resource. But now they're like, okay, well, now we can't give the money to you so you can do the monetary part of the resource. Now you're just, like, maybe they're
I get it.
a little bit, not, inadequate's not the word, they just don't have the tools to kind of pull off a lot of the stuff that's not monetary. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. But I hear it. Anyways, we would love to know your guys' own thoughts on this issue, because maybe this has impacted you or someone that you know or artists you know, or if you're seeing us in a different city, locations where you're at too. Beyond that, we'll be back next week with another episode of Arts and Offers. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We will see you later.